Now, October, it is the Halloween season, and I tend to celebrate the Halloween season all throughout October. So I'm going to have some, well, what some people would consider deep cut recommendations for spooky and scary movies, monster movies. Other people, if they're decent horror people, they've seen these movies. And of course, there are some people who think they've seen the movies, but they've only seen the clips. We're not going to talk about those nimnulls today. We're going to be talking about something delightful, something delicious, something from Toho, the people that brought us Gojira, the people that brought us Ghidorah, the people that bring us all the great kaiju. But this is not a giant monster film. You must remember, kaiju means strange beast. It does not mean giant beast specifically. So this is a magnificent kaiju movie. It was made in the late 1950s, and the American version of the title is The H-Man. Now, that's a little bit of an inaccurate title because there are really 5 H-men in the film. It's not just one H-man. But trust me, if you can get through this movie, bearing in mind it's made in 1958, so it may be a little bit soft for people under the age of 30 these days, you are going to love it. So buckle up. It's going to be a lovely ride. Now, the first thing to understand about the H-Man, and this is going to be my terrible Japanese accent version of the original Japanese title. Bijou Deutsch Dai Ninyan. Hey, I warned you it was going to be horrible, but at least it's not as bad as Dadman 55's Irish accent. Dear God. Anyway, moving right along. And I love you, Dadman. You do a lot of good impressions, but we have to move back to the movie. That Japanese title roughly translates to Beauty and the Liquid Humans. And boy, is that accurate. A lot of the film, in fact, more than 60% of the film, is syndicated crime oriented, meaning gangsters. All right? And there's also a lot of nightclub element. So you're getting the benefit of seeing what nightclubs were like in 1958 Tokyo. Now, come on. That's an enticement, is it not? And you have some handsome gangsters, and you have a gorgeous, ooh, hubba hubba, nightclub singer, female nightclub singer. Unfortunately, she becomes the victim. She's not the final girl. There aren't really a lot of final people, male or female, in this movie. The H-men, look, when they got to eat, they got to eat. And if you are smart enough to watch the Japanese version, not the censored American version, well, the H-men, they eat. So with the Japanese uncensored version, look, you are going to get a little bit of sexiness, all right? But there is no direct nudity. There is implied nudity, but there is no direct nudity. And there is a very, very, very sexy nightclub scene. That is integral to the plot. It honestly does feed into the storyline. And you have a lot of crime being integral to the plot as well, but that feeds into what the H-men themselves are doing. Now, are they real monsters versus imagined monsters or a dream or any of that Jacob's Ladder bullpucky? They are real monsters. They are not Jacob's Ladder bullpucky. Okay? So, what you are promised in the movie poster, what you are promised in the first third and half of the film, that promise is fulfilled. All right? These are real kaiju. These are real monsters. And do they truly consume other human beings? Not in a gross way. There's no blood involved. There's no gore involved. Is it a little bit scary? Yes, it is. Yes, they do. But it is still acceptable for a PG audience. Not even PG-13. PG audience. It is one of my favorite Toho films, and I love Toho, baby dolls. I love Toho. It is one of my favorite Toho creepy-ass movies that has ever been produced. And luckily, it is readily, the Japanese version is readily available for anyone who wants to see it. Now, you might have to go to a couple of sites that are legal. They're totally legal in the United States, in the Commonwealth, everywhere else, and you can find the Japanese version. And if you want to see the American version, that's fine. But there is something very strange about the American version that was shown on American and Australian television in the early 1970s. The creatures look turquoise blue in that Americanized version, whereas in the Japanese version, there is a delicious jade green, and I kind of prefer that. Now, I do realize that Toho has a reputation for promising monsters, and then oftentimes the monsters do not have that much of a screen time in the movie. Does that happen here? Look, it's 1958. Yes, it does. But are you going to care? No. The acting, the lighting, the production design, everything that makes you get entranced by a movie, you're going to forget that you're not seeing monsters often enough. This is not a Roger Corman movie, although it does take certain aspects of the Roger Corman precepts of making a movie into account. Are you having sexiness? Yes. Will certain weapons be used in the film? Oh, yes. Is flame and fire used in the film? Oh, most assuredly. Most assuredly. And are there incredible creepy moments where we see some of the best special effects available or anyone is capable of creating in 1958 on screen? Oh, yes, we do. You get to enjoy that. And some of them are a little bit grotesque. Not gross, but grotesque. And I apologize for being a little bit oblique here, but I'm trying not to do spoilers because, if I do spoilers, that's really going to ruin the movie for you. And I am obliged to point out that the version currently on Tubi is the slightly censored version. It is slightly censored, so I do recommend finding the uncensored version because otherwise you're not going to get the full effect of the film. Now, do we have a scene that is very complicated to produce and film and make happen that adds to utter excitement that is set in sewers? Yes, we do. But to balance that off, do we have one of the most beautiful actresses in Japanese cinematic history, Yumi Shirakawa, all right, who started with Toho in 1956. She was only 19 years old. Yeah, we have her in this movie as well. And a bunch of other beauties and a bunch of really tough guys you would not want to meet in a dark alley after 2 a.m. This movie's got it all going on, baby dolls, in all ways. Just don't complain about the monsters not being there too much. That was just a standard thing in the 1950s. The film also features, and man, I love this guy. I absolutely adore him. Akihiko Hirata, who was the guy with the eye patch in Gojira, 1954, the creator of the Oxygen Destroyer. He played Dr. Daisuke in Gojira, 1954. In this film, very different role. Very different role, but you will appreciate it. As for the special effects, I am very partial to them. Very partial to them. And I think that for the time period, they were amazing. They were subtle. And at sometimes they were, oh dear, I'm going to get a little bit scared if I think about it too much. But then again, I don't really give a shit about slasher stuff. I prefer things with an imagination behind the film production, behind the script, and behind what Toho was doing at this time in history. So, if I was Joe Bob Briggs at the last drive-in, and I had an option of only 4 stars, how many stars would I give this? To be perfectly honest, 3.5. A little bit, just a tiny bit too much gangster stuff, a little bit too much crime drama stuff, needed a little bit more of the kaiju, the strange beasts, and oh, this reminds me. It is actually based on an historical event. All right? So you got H-bomb tests, and sometimes you had fishing ships, not boats, fishing ships that accidentally moved into areas of fallout, and that might cause some problems. That might cause a monster to be created. That's a beautiful thing in a Halloween movie. So, bear in mind, not as much monster as you want, but bear in mind an overall gorgeous movie, entertaining movie, and the music is fantastic. So, again, if I was Joe Bob, 3.5 stars. I say, check it out. I'm sure Darcy would like it. Anywho, nighty-o.